Welcome back to Our Walk in Christ. We have a special video today because I had some other engagements today, and while the Peter study is done, we'll go ahead and get back to that next week. Today I want to talk a couple of updates, some things that I've talked about previously, and ask this fundamental question: is California under God's judgment? You know, very interesting things going on over there. Everything from not quite holding back, rioting as much as they should, although they're not nearly as bad as many other places. They're pretty much the whole state's on fire, if you guys haven't noticed right there. But meanwhile, as all of these issues are going on, they're still attacking churches and charging churches thousands of dollars for holding services because they don't want anybody holding services indoors. Go outside where it's only 117 and the entire atmosphere is full of deadly smoke. That's safe, but going inside of a church. Why? Because a virus that doesn't actually kill most people. It gets it. These are the real datas. Now, I did a video on my other channel at one point in time looking at how the journalists are just kind of starting to read into what's going on with the COVID stuff. And once they see something they disagree with, they just, oh, this is the baddest idea ever. Baddest, yeah, which is how journalists write these days anyway, right? But the latest one, like the CDC scientists are like, yeah, if you're asymptomatic, you probably don't need to be tested because only 6% of all deaths are COVID only. Most of those are even older people. It boils down to the average person in society is going to have very few implications. If you're somebody that works with elderly or you're old or you have comorbidities, you have to take a few extra precautions. But preventing churches from meeting together when they willingly want to meet together is kind of insane. But what else is going on? Well, one of the other things that has happened, I talked about a couple weeks ago, is this last week, Governor Gavin Newsom signed into law the SB 145, which I commented on in a daily walk a couple weeks ago. Now, let me bring you up to date with what I got right, what I got wrong about that bill. Number one, it is a California state bill. I wasn't sure if it was a California or if that senator had proposed that into the Senate state at large. But that's a California-specific bill. And what it did is, right now in California, if there is a sexual interaction between a male and a female, the judge does not have to immediately put the older person on a sexual offenders list up to 10 years of age gap. In other words, a 14-year-old girl could have a sexual encounter with a 23-year-old man, and that's not necessarily something that goes on the registry list, whereas in every other state it does. What this law did is that did the same thing for homosexual interactions. So a 14-year-old boy could have homosexual interactions with a 23-year-old man, and that is no longer considered a something worthy of the being put on a sexual offenders registry list. Basically, it normalized the sexual interactions, allowing that to have the same unilateral. So the law allows the child has to be the age of 14 or greater. And if the child is aged 14 or greater and the age difference is less than 10 years, that is not any longer a crime in California. Now, this bill was proposed by the same person who defelonized intentionally spreading HIV to a person in the state of California. So, in other words, let's get this straight. The COVID virus, which actually is really only fatal to extremely old and extremely sick people, generally is asymptomatic among the general population. Churches get fined thousands of dollars for being open in the state of California because of COVID death, but a person can willingly infect somebody, knowingly infect somebody against the person's knowledge with HIV, and that is no longer a felony offense. That is all happening in California. Now, did God cause the wildfires? Of course he didn't cause the wildfires. We know that one of the wildfires is set off by a foolish person doing a gender reveal party. Hey, I got no problems with gender reveal parties, but the fact of the matter is, don't cause explosions in your gender reveal parties. It's unnecessary, okay? If you want to go do a good gender reveal party, go over to 3lollies.com and buy some preggy pops. They actually have the stork pops as their new line. They're used as gender reveal parties, right? Safely. They don't cause forest fires. You get them and they're blue pops or pink pops, and people don't know what they are until they open them up. So you can open them up and go, wow, it's a girl, or woo, it's a boy. Of course, in California, you're not allowed to determine somebody's gender. They have to determine it themselves when they're old enough to determine it. That's what's going on. Now, we also know one of the fires, at least, was started by lightning strike. That's common. We also, though, have a lot of evidence that censored guys roaming through the streets, censored, may have actually led some censored fires in the state of California and some in Oregon and I think Idaho maybe, or Washington, I forget. But there is legit evidence and arrests actually made for some of these peaceful protesters who actually started some of these fires as well. Not all of them, just some of them. Now, where does God fit in all this? Well, one thing that God does is, as it says in Galatians chapter 6, God is not mocked. As a man sows, so shall he reap. We have sown and sown and sown and sown to our flesh, and nobody in the United States is leading that sowing party faster than the state of California. The biggest problem with wildfires isn't climate change, like they're talking about right now. It's the fact that they refuse to allow people to do what are called controlled burns. This is why most other places don't have serious problems with forest fires. Because as we learned in like grade school, you go through, the Forestry Service goes through and burns out old dead brush. They clear out old dead brush, which keeps the forests well alive and prevents the forests from lighting themselves aflame. Because if a fire starts, it runs out of fuel and extinguishes itself pretty good. California has gone so green policy that they can't possibly touch any of the forest, and they literally let it be exactly what it is, and that produces ripe conditions for forest fires. Now, as a man sows, so shall he reap. California has been sowing liberal policies. They have been sowing homosexual acts legalizing. They have been sowing the seeds of closing down churches. They have been sowing the seeds of critical race theory. They have been sowing all of these different seeds. They have made their bed. Now it is time to lay in it. So in Romans 1, God talks about, in fact, John MacArthur, one of the churches at the center of California trying to close down churches, delivered a sermon, must have been about 15 or 20 years ago, about 15 years ago now, I think. It was called When God Abandons a Nation. And it is so accurate to listen to that sermon now and look at the things going on and see how he progressed from when God abandons a nation to the sermon he delivered, I think it was in June 6th, June 7th-ish area, somewhere around there, about who is really responsible for the rioters, where he boils this down and says, hey, they needed to destroy the conscience, and they have done so. We have got ourselves addicted to sex and pornography and all sorts of other things. So much so that in the 1980s, I think Tammy Bruce, a lesbian feminist who ran Now magazine, she actually came out and said, hey, the homosexual agenda wants to produce sex-addicted children because they fall into homosexuality very easily. Then we get guys like Greg Coles with his Single Gay Christian book that's like, if there is, I heard him say this on a podcast, if there happens to be some gay agenda, I've never heard about it. Well, open your eyes, dude, because it's all around you. And it's been all around you. It's been all around you since before you were born. And it's there. And Tammy Bruce wrote about it in the 1980s. Okay? We, as John MacArthur says, we've destroyed our conscience. Then it's destroy the family units. Well, adopt the children in the state. So it's getting so bad right now that because of the COVID restrictions and all these kids are sent home to do online education, that the kid can't even have a BB gun on his back wall because they're getting police raids for having the kid having a BB gun on the back wall. One kid got suspended from school for having a airsoft gun that literally said zombie hunters on it. Get these kids, that's the kid's bedroom. Shut up. Shut up. Let the kid do what the kid's doing. Let the parent be the parent, okay? But they're taking this away. They're getting away from the parental authority structure. Then we're getting away from the police structure. The police structure, the law and the order. This is why all these guys are running around now being emboldened to commit rioting and looting. I am so pleased to see that, swallow hard, it's the Trump administration now cramping down. They have empowered federal prosecutors to take over when these people keep on getting picked up, because most of these rioting and looting, it's not right-wing white supremacists who've gotten their ways into there and give me some gay frogs. No. It's the same criminals that keep on getting picked up. It's like they're playing a giant game of catch and release fishing over there. Reeled one in. Don't do that again. Go home. And he goes out and loots again the next day. And the next day. And the next day. And the guy who shot, the guy literally walked up, hey, Trump supporter, right here. Where's that? Bang, bang. That guy, yeah, he had 6 interactions with the police for violent tendencies prior to that shooting. If they had locked him up the first time, that man would have been saved. And so the federal prosecutors are coming in some of these places, and things are actually starting to clean up a little bit because they realize that they're not playing around. Same thing happened in Lancaster. Riots broke out in Lancaster. They arrested, I think, 6 or 12 people, put $1 million bonds on them. You want out, $1 million. Deal with it. Streets cleaned up almost immediately. We didn't get a Kenosha down there, even though it started to break out. We didn't get that. They went in, they acted with force because of law and order. But what are these guys around? Defund the police, defund the police. And then, of course, give me your gun. You're not allowed to defend yourself. You're not allowed to call the police. Well, what am I supposed to do? Sit there and let them steal all our stuff? Of course, because you're systemically racist. That's insane. That's insane. So John MacArthur says, we've, number 1, the conscience, number 2, the family, number 3, he says, we've destroyed the police, and now they're going after the church. And they're doing it. And some of the apostates have taken care of many of the churches. There's some churches that they're allowed to open. They're just like, we're just not opening until 2021 because of love, love, love. What are you talking about, you apostate? Open your church doors. Allow people to worship. And then you got other places like in California where the churches are getting fined, sometimes hundreds, sometimes thousands of dollars for having worship services. So is California being judged by God? Well, they're whittling down the conscience. They're destroying the family unit. They're destroying the police, law and order. They're destroying the churches. All right? They're putting in liberal policies. They're normalizing and legalizing pedophilia. God will hand them over. And it actually says here in Romans 1. All right, so it says at the end here, Romans 1, starting in verse 24, therefore God gave them over to the lusts and the hearts of their impurity, so their bodies would be dishonored among them, for they exchanged the truth of God for a lie, and worshipped and served the creature rather than the Creator, who is blessed forever. Amen. For this reason, God gave them over to degrading passions. Their women exchanged the natural function with that which is unnatural. In the same way, the men also abandoned their natural function of the woman and burned in their desire toward one another, men with men committing indecent acts and receiving in their own persons the due penalty of their error. And they did not see fit to acknowledge God any longer. God gave them over to a depraved mind to do those things which are not proper, being filled with all unrighteousness, wickedness, greed, evil, full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, malice. They are gossips, slanderers, haters of God, insolent, arrogant, boastful, inventors of evil, disobedient to parents, without understanding, untrustworthy, unloving, unmerciful. And though they know the ordinances of God, and that those who practice such things are worthy of death, they do not only do the same, but they give hearty approval of those who practice them. And that's the state we find ourselves in. That's where California finds themselves in. Did God light the state on fire? No, but he handed us over to the liberal policies that prevented anybody from clearing things out, doing controlled burns to keep the forests from catching on a blaze and spreading as far as they do. Is God doing the shooting and the looting and the rioting? Of course not. But we have let go of organization. We have let go of law and order. We have let go of authority, and now people do, in the words of Judges, everyone did what seemed right in their own eyes, and that never turns out well. When we have cast off the conscience and the family unit and the legal authority and the church authority, we are simply asking for sin to overtake our lives. That is the state California is in. They are reaping. They are reaping the harvest of the seeds which they have sown. And let it be a lesson to us that in our personal lives, in our small towns, in our big cities, in our state, and in our country, we need to stop sowing seeds of unrighteousness, because we are going to make ourselves a bed of it. Thanks for coming along. If you like this video, go ahead and comment, like, comment, subscribe to the channel. We do have some social media sites. We are on Twitter, Minds, and Gab. We are also cross-post these videos to YouTube and to BitChute. So thanks for coming along, and have a look at ourwalkinchrist.com/support to learn how you can help support the channel. Thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.